You probably woke up to this one the same way I did. A headline that felt impossible, the long-running boss of one of the sport's most dominant teams, gone in the blink of an eye. It's wild because this wasn't some veteran whose form had faded slowly. This was a man who'd been steering the ship through triumph after triumph, and yet the boardroom move that ended his run looked sudden and, to many, brutal. What I want you to keep in mind while we unpack this is the contrast between what happened on track and what was happening at the top. On the weekends, the team looked untouchable, but behind closed doors, the balance of power had quietly shifted. You felt that tension in the reaction from staff and insiders, stunned, confused, some feeling blindsided, and that disbelief is exactly what made the story spread so fast. Right away, I want to hear from you. Do you think the firing was about results or about control? Drop a quick results or control in the comments so we can rate the room. Now, let me walk you through the moments that mattered without getting bogged down in corporate speak. First, the removal was abrupt and immediate, and even after the initial dismissal, there were still formal ties that took time to clear up. That's why we saw company filings and official paperwork appear later, which made the separation feel final rather than temporary. That paperwork matters because it's the difference between being put on gardening leave and having every last official connection cut, and when those filings landed, the narrative changed from sudden shock to this is done. But don't let the legal language distract you from the human side. This was a team leader who'd spent decades building a culture and a machine, and for many inside the factory, it felt like losing the captain mid-voyage. So here's another quick interaction that'll take 2 seconds. If you think this was handled poorly, type poor in the chat. If you think the company needed to act, type needed. Your replies shape what we cover next, because I'll dive deeper into the why or the how depending on what you want. Finally, if you want more breakdowns like this, the inside context, the money side, and the speculative next steps, hit like and subscribe. We're pushing to 1,000 subs, and your support literally helps us get more access and more scoops. Think about this for a moment. Christian Horner didn't just show up and coach a team to victory, he built a dynasty, 2 decades. At the helm, 6 constructors' titles, 8 drivers' championships. That's not luck, that's vision, persistence, and an ability to get everyone aligned toward the same goal. But success on track doesn't always protect you in the boardroom, and in Horner's case, the defining moment came off the circuit. When the team's key supporter and backer passed away, the dynamics changed overnight. The shield that had protected his autonomy, allowing him to run the team his way for nearly 20 years, disappeared suddenly. Horner was reporting to executives who didn't have the same background in racing, who didn't necessarily respect the culture he'd cultivated, and who had their own ambitions to stamp on the Red Bull empire. It's easy to look at Horner and see just the trophies, but the politics behind the scenes were relentless. There were disagreements long before this shift, strategic clashes over potential partnerships, even conflicting visions about selling stakes to outside companies. And all of it compounded when power was redistributed across Austria. A new executive, someone without racing roots, gained influence, and Horner's previous wins didn't carry the weight they once did. Too many inside the paddock, it felt inevitable that change was coming, even if the public didn't see the warning signs. What's fascinating is that despite the politics and the upheaval, Horner's reputation remained stellar in Formula One circles. People remember him as a man who could turn a customer team into a world-beating outfit. His track record speaks for itself. Now, I want to pause and ask you, what do you think is Horner's biggest legacy in Formula One? Is it the sheer number of titles or the culture and systems he built to make Red Bull consistently competitive? Type your answer in the comments. I'll be reading through them, and we might even highlight some in a future video. And while you're thinking about that, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. We break down moves like this all season, and you'll want to catch the next chapter where we dive into the financial and contractual side of Horner's exit. Finally, just to spark some debate, here's a quick one: legacy versus politics, which mattered more in the end? Vote below, it only takes a second. Remember, understanding the why behind a firing like this isn't just about boardroom drama. It's about seeing how the entire ecosystem of Formula One operates, where on-track success is sometimes only part of the story, and Horner's story shows us that clearly, even champions aren't immune to off-track shits. Now let's get into the numbers and the paperwork, because in Formula One, the story isn't just about speed on the track, it's also about contracts, severance, and who's officially tied to which companies. After the initial shock of his firing, Christian Horner wasn't completely severed from Red Bull immediately. He remained listed as a director across multiple UK entities: Red Bull Racing, Red Bull Technology, Red Bull Powertrains, and the Red Bull Powertrains 2026 project. These aren't just ceremonial titles. They're the backbone of Red Bull's technical and racing operations, and having him still tied to them meant he had influence, even if unofficially. But the paperwork eventually caught up. Recent filings at Companies House confirmed what many had expected. Horner is now fully removed as a director of all these entities. This wasn't just an administrative step, it signals a clean break, and in a sport where perception and optics matter, seeing the filings publicly cemented the story. Horner's time with Red Bull isn't just over, it's officially done. Of course, with any top-level executive exit, the next question is money. Horner's contract was massive, reportedly running through 2030 at an annual figure somewhere between 9 and 12 million pounds. Doing the math, that likely meant a payout in the ballpark of 50 million pounds once severance and remaining contractual obligations were included. That kind of payday is enough to give anyone serious options moving forward. It's also a reminder that in F1, high-level departures aren't just about ego or control. They're calculated moves with financial consequences for both the team and the individual. So here's a question for you. Do you think a payout of that size was deserved, given Horner's legacy, or do you think it was simply part of the legal machinery of a top executive? Take a second to write your one-sentence take in the comments. I'm curious how the F1 community sees it. And speaking of next steps, this payout isn't just cash in the bank, it's freedom. Horner now has the means to look at Formula One from a new perspective, whether that's taking on a leadership role at another team or potentially owning a share in a future outfit. That kind of financial security changes the conversation entirely. It's the difference between taking the first opportunity that comes along and strategically choosing a project where he has maximum control. Before we move on, a quick engagement check. If you were in Horner's shoes, would you take a role at another existing team or try to invest and own part of a team? Vote join or own in the comments. It'll be interesting to see how fans weigh ambition versus security. And don't forget, if you're enjoying this breakdown, hit like and subscribe. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and your support means we can keep digging into the inside stories of Formula One. From the track to the boardroom, next up, we'll talk about the future, Alpine, ownership opportunities, and the kind of comeback only someone like Christian Horner could pull off. So now that Christian Horner has the financial freedom, the clean break from Red Bull, the big question is, what's next? There's been a lot of speculation, and if you're a fan of F1 politics and strategy, this is where it gets really interesting. One obvious possibility is Alpine. The team, formerly Renault, has been in and out of Formula One in various guises, and next season, they'll no longer be running a works engine. That opens the door for someone like Horner, a proven leader who can turn a customer outfit into a championship contender, to step in and take the reins. The advantage for Alpine is clear: hands-off ownership from the backers, plus a seasoned professional who knows exactly how to structure a team for success. Horner could essentially replicate what he did at Red Bull, but in a situation where he has maximum operational control and minimal interference from the top. There's also the ownership angle. Horner has often admired executives like Toto Wolff, who not only run the team, but own a stake in it. That combination of operational power and equity gives him long-term security and influence. With the payout he just received from Red Bull, Horner could realistically partner with an investor, especially from the Middle East, where there's strong interest in F1 investments, and secure a portion of a team. That's the kind of move that could set him up for years, letting him run a team his way while building long-term value. It's not just about stepping back into a principal role. It's about strategically positioning himself for ownership and influence at the top of the sport. Now, I want to hear from you. Where would you like to see Horner next? Alpine with a hands-off backer, buying into a struggling team? Or maybe another surprise move? Drop your pick in the comments and let's see what the community thinks. And while you're thinking about that, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We're pushing for 1,000 subscribers, and every click helps us bring you more deep dives and exclusive analysis straight from F1's inner workings. The takeaway here is simple: Horner isn't finished. He's just entering a new chapter, one where he could have even more control and influence than he ever did at Red Bull. Whether it's guiding Alpine to success, owning a stake in a team, or creating an entirely new operation, the opportunities are there. And with his track record, 6 constructors' titles, 8 drivers' championships, and a proven ability to turn customer teams into powerhouse contenders, Horner is still one of the most formidable figures in Formula One. Finally, one last poll for you. Would you want to see Horner back in a leadership role in F1, no matter the team? Yes or no? Your opinion helps shape how we cover the next moves in this story. That's it for now. Stay tuned, drive safe, and we'll see you in the next video.